Hi, this is Freedom Gale. Welcome to the Personal Freedom Coaching Center. I am the founder of the Personal Freedom Center in Auburn, Washington, and I coined the term personal freedom as an all-encompassing term to describe the state that all people strive to achieve, and it encompasses my 5 core pathways to personal freedom, which are spiritual, emotional, religious, physical, and financial freedom. All of my books, music, videos, and motivational speeches evolve around these 5 core pathways. I'll be telling you which one of the 5 pathways my topics are under, so thank you for tuning in. Today I'm going to be sharing with you, I'm going to begin sharing with you some parenting tips that I learned while raising my 5 children alone and working as a counselor, so you can benefit from both my wisdom and from my mistakes. When I was working at a drug and alcohol treatment facility, and my children were pretty young, I would say maybe ranging from the ages of 13 to 3 or 4, so I was raising my children alone, okay? And through my history, I didn't have a husband. I was a victim of incest and abandonment as a child and grew up in foster care. So I didn't have any idea of what love was or how to have a healthy relationship. And so I had to learn kind of as I went along. And the opportunity presented itself for someone to teach a parenting class, and I volunteered. Even though my plate was already pretty full, I volunteered because I saw the book and it was big. And I needed to have those skills. I knew that I wasn't the best at parenting because I only knew what I had been taught and what I had seen and experienced in my youth. And that wasn't the way that I felt I wanted to continue to parent my children, because I had already seen myself making some of the mistakes that my parents made or doing some of the things that I didn't like spanking. And I'm not saying I disapprove of spanking or I don't agree with it, but I think that there is a healthy way, to spank, and I think that spanking should be the last resort. So, I think a friend of mine, she said that the only reason you should ever spank your child was for deliberate disobedience and for lying. Okay, and so I used that for a long time as a barometer for when and if I would use spanking. But as I began to go through this manual and start developing my classes for this parenting group, it's called A Positive Parenting for People in Recovery, I started to realize that these tips were very valuable for any parent and for any mother or father, and also for the children. Okay, so I became very interested in sharing these things with others. I became very interested in implementing these things in our lives, and now, of course, I'm very interested in sharing these things with others. And the idea came to me because I have recently come into contact with a young mother who is dealing with some of the same stressors that I did, and I didn't know how to deal with those stressors. I think the biggest asset that I had at that time was a prayer. I believed in praying, and so the Personal Freedom Center is based on spiritual concepts, okay? So I think that as a parent, we need good, what do they say? Orderly direction stands for, G-O-D, or Yah, or Yahuwah, who I call my higher power, or my innermost power. So we need that with divine guidance in order to learn how to deal with these precious souls. And many of us as adults with children, and I'm speaking for myself, didn't have the education on how to handle my own emotions, or what to do when problems came up. So one of the first things that I implemented in my family when I started teaching the parenting class was family meetings. I hadn't done family meetings with my kids, and pretty much I thought that it was something only white people did, but I was like, okay, I can see the importance of it. So the family meeting give me an opportunity to share with my children the things that I was dealing with, what my anticipation for our future was, and what are my hopes for their future were, and how we can get there together, some of the problems we can address that are going on in the home currently, and give everybody a chance to come to the table and talk about things that they felt were bothering them, and also to bring back positive feedback. It didn't necessarily, and you don't want it to be the negative. You want it to be a positive place and a positive time for everybody to come, and sit at the table. So I suggest strongly family meetings, and this is what I'm going to discuss today. So if you are more than one person, if you are just a couple who doesn't have any children, you can begin family meetings now. And some of the things that you would talk about is maybe the work week, how that's working out for you guys, transportation, finances, managing your budget, issues that arose during the week, and how they were dealt with, whether positively or negatively, and maybe come up with some solutions for change. Okay, so the mechanics of our meetings, they're very simple. And we like to suggest that you keep an agenda, and you can do that however you wish. You can have each person set their own list of during the week, like write down things that they want to talk about in the family meeting, and set up a regular day and time for that family meeting, and let them know, or give them a reminder that day that that meeting is happening that day, and you would hope that they would, come prepared for it, because it's not just for you. So you don't want to come in there as a parent or as the family head, maybe the husband or the wife, if you're a single parent, or the mother or father, and a dictatorial or, kind of tone, this is family meeting, and I'm going to tell you what I want from you guys this weekend. If it doesn't happen that way, then you're all in punishment. No, that's very negative, and so you want to let it be positive. You want it to be a sharing place where people in your family can feel free to share, and to even talk about their desires and the things that they want and they don't want, and the things that they like and they don't like. So it's gonna cause you to grow, as a parent, because as the parent, you're going to be the facilitator, meaning the one in charge of the meeting, opening the floor, allowing room for people to speak, allowing turns, and making sure that nobody takes up too much time or condemns what the other person has said. So you want to establish ground rules, with that being said, for the meeting. And so one of the ground rules that you might want to come up with would be practicing mutual respect, okay, and maintaining emotional honesty. Those would be the two that I would suggest that you start out with. So practicing mutual respect will keep the other children or people involved, whether they're grandparents, they might be your mom or your dad or in-law, that are staying with you. And if there are people that are staying with you temporarily, they need to be involved in the family meeting too, because they need to be able to bring their feelings to the home. But more importantly, your children and you need to be able to bring your feelings back about what is going on, in the house, that maybe you like to see them improve. And this is even a great environment to do that, because then nobody feels like they're getting ganged up on if you do it in the right way. And so we'll talk about what that sounds like and what that looks like in just a few minutes, so stay with me. So again, we're talking about family meetings, and some of the things that I've learned while doing positive parenting for people in recovery in my career as a drug and alcohol counselor. Now, drug and alcohol counseling, people don't know, encompasses everything that a person's ever dealt with in their life. And so it caused me to stretch, because going into the field, I thought that I was just going to be teaching them about, the mechanics of drugs and alcohol, how it affects your life and how it impacts your body. But what the majority of the work really is, or equal equal amount of the work is going into a person's life and their emotions and their own being and their mind, heart, soul, and spirit, and finding out what is there. And that's the same thing that you wanted to hear. You want to get to a place where you're teaching yourself and you're teaching your family how to have emotional honesty, because see, we don't know. We weren't taught. Like I said, in black communities, counseling was something that we thought only white people did. And as a matter of fact, if you grow up in churches, you're actually told that, Christians don't go to counselors. We go to God. We go to, Yahuwah, whoever you want to, however you address, that being. Most of my life I did say God, but today I'm trying to call him by what I believe is his real name. But that's what you believe, and that's another thing that you could talk about in your family meetings is beliefs, but never enforcing your beliefs on your family. Everybody has a right to choose up to a certain age. Of course, you want to guide your children into the belief system that you hold dear. But as they get 16, 17, 18, they might want to start to explore, some other things, and that's where conflict usually arises. So keeping an agenda on the refrigerator is also another idea. You can put a piece of paper on the refrigerator or in a place that's less public, so when company comes, they won't see it. But even if a company does come and they see it, it will be motivation for them to maybe implement some of these same ideas into their own family and into their own lives. Okay, it's hard to have a family meeting by yourself, but if you are single and you're listening to this, it's also a great idea to sit by yourself every week and look at your life goals, the things that you've accomplished during the week, and the things that you feel good about, and the things that you want to change, and make a mini plan. And it shouldn't be, long and structured unless you're doing it and for that purpose. You can look at what it is that you want to change, but those are what I call long and short-term goals. And so when you get to short-term goals, you do those first, and then from there you set out another time to kind of pen out and figure out your long-term goals. And you can do this for your family. For instance, say if you had 5 children and you never, or children period, and you never got to go on a family vacation, like to Disneyland or somewhere big and exciting, like dream about, you're young. I've never been to this day, and I've always wanted to take my children. That didn't happen because I have 5 kids by myself. And so it was really hard, And if you want to know how hard it is, just imagine your family structure right now. And imagine that you had 5 children without a partner. So my oldest daughter was 6 years older than my next son, and they are 6 years apart. And then from there, my next 3 children would be 2 years apart, and then my last 2 would be 4 years apart. And so my oldest daughter became a big helper for me as our family grew. And there were a lot of responsibilities placed on her, and all the kids had chores. So I figured there was no excuse to have a messy house, because just as many hands and feet there are to mess it up, that there are just as many hands to fix it up, to clean it up. So you can play, but after you play, you have to put your toys away. So you want to give them an opportunity for the meetings, and you want to make sure that everybody comes prepared for the meeting, and you want to make sure that you don't come to the meeting as a dictator. You want to be a facilitator, which is kind of like a orchestra director, and you see them, boom, and then they stop, the piano or whatever, the violins, and they point to the flutist, and then the flutists come in, And so you want to organize that. You want to watch for tempers rising. You want to watch for inappropriate words, and you want to watch for time management. So you want to make sure that the person sticks to their list, and that you stick to the agenda, and everybody has a chance to speak, and that everything that they share is shared and received with respect and not criticism. And I think one of the greatest things that I've learned as a counselor is to use I statements. I feel like this when A, B, or C happens. Okay, and you're not accusing anybody when you approach a conversation like that. And it's worked for me in all of my relationships with partners and love relationships, husbands, sisters, brothers, whatever. It doesn't mean that the the matter is going to be resolved right then and there, but it allows the opportunity for it to breathe. And so when you share using I statements, you wait and then you say, this is how I feel when this happened, or this is how I felt when this happened, or this is how I feel when you do this. For instance, you know, when I'm talking and you constantly interrupt me, I feel as though what I'm sharing with you is not important. Okay? And so if you do it constantly, then I feel as though my thoughts and my feelings are not important to you. So now you want to be quiet and allow the person to respond. And if you want to sit down in an even more constructive way, and I think I'm veering off the path a little bit, but I'm not, and maybe just a little bit, because this can be a whole nother video by itself, or you want to ask them to respond in the same way, you know. And the proper way for you to respond when someone speaks to you that way is, I hear what you said, and you reflect and you repeat back to them what they said. You know, I understand that when I interrupt you, that it causes you to feel like I don't care about how you feel. Now, I just want to let you know that that is not true. My interrupting you is just a pattern of my own bad behaviors, and I need to work on that. So thank you for sharing that with me, because it'll help me grow. Okay, now that sounds really healthy and that sounds great, but when you structure a conversation from the beginning in the right way, it can end up like that. And people start to respect you more, and they look forward to talking to you, your children too, when they have a conflict, because they know that it can resolve in a positive way. It doesn't have to be negative. So some of the things that you can also talk about during your family meetings are financial matters, chores. You know, you can rotate chores. Everybody has a busy schedule in these days, and in these times. You know, two parents have to work, one parent has to work, kids are going to school, doing things after school, okay, cooking dinner and eating together. Sometimes at night, when I was working, I didn't get dinner on the table till like 9 o'clock. And that's because I went to work, and then sometimes I had to go to the grocery store and then pick up the children, and then go home and cook. And after that, then I may have still had some paperwork to do, and get up the next day and do it all over again. That's why I said, a lot of times people ask me, how did I do it? You know, raised 5 kids by myself. I said, I prayed a lot and I cried a lot. And that's the truth. And those two things I probably did more than anything. Of course, when nobody was looking and my kids were in the bed. And I learned to either do that silently in my head, because sometimes you're not in the position to, you know, to kneel and pray. Like, you don't always have to kneel and pray. You should always be asking and talking. It's really like talking to your inner self, you know, because, you know, the spirit is in us. You know, man is a union of spirit and flesh. And so when we're speaking, we're already in harmony with that oneness, which is our Creator, which is our Father, or through His Spirit in us, or through the Spirit in us. So what's really exciting in these meetings is how we learn to deal with our 2 ground rules, which is number 1, practicing mutual respect, and number 2, maintaining emotional honesty. Now, you have to remember that most of us do not get an education in emotional honesty when we're growing up. And we have to learn along the way. And it usually happens like this, so-and-so, would you please come to the principal's office, you know? And then you go down to the principal's office with fear and trembling, okay? And you get in trouble because of something that you did. Somebody upset you, or maybe you got in a fight, or maybe you didn't. Maybe you just said a bad word or whatever. Nowadays, you get in trouble in school for so much. My kids, I got called to school for some things that I thought were absolutely ridiculous. But I guess they got like the 0 tolerance policy for bullying now, and that's a good thing, you know. So, and fighting especially. So you have to really be sensitive when these things happen, because your child might be in the right, you know. But you need to teach them, and that is your responsibility as their parent, how to handle things emotionally so that they don't end up in trouble, okay? We don't agree with things unless we feel we can live with them, and we take care of ourselves and don't expect others to be mind readers. You know what I'm saying? So you have to learn how to take care of yourself. And we don't want to get into blaming. Um, we don't want to get into right and wrong. We want to respect our thoughts and feelings as well as the thoughts and feelings of our children, of our partners, meaning husbands, wives, significant others. You know, we want to respect each other's feelings, even if you think they're silly. You know, one thing that I taught myself to do is if somebody told me that something that I did or said offended them or hurt them, I would apologize that they felt hurt by the thing that I said or did. But I would not own it if I didn't feel as though it was wrong. It may have been necessary to say, and they may not have appreciated me saying it at all or in the way that I chose to. You know, but I always try to make sure that the message of love gets through. And that's another very important topic that I hope to talk to you guys about in the future. But it's so simple. You know, make sure that you honor the being that they are, because they're no different than who you are sitting in your space inside of your body. There's a soul inside of them too. You know, that is striving to grow, trying to understand and work out and manage their way through this crazy life that we all live, you know? So we don't agree to things unless we feel that we can live with them. You know, so if somebody says, well, hey mom, you know, I don't feel like I should have to wash the dishes because I don't like washing the dishes. All right, that might be valid. And maybe some of the other kids might not mind if they decided to take on the chore that they don't like. You know, but I guess we think that because you did it, that they have to do it too, you know. And one of my sons was involved in a lot of sports, and he also worked in high school. And so the more he took on, the more of his chores I took away. And some of his siblings didn't understand, you know, and I had to explain it to them, but they just saw favoritism. You know, and it wasn't favoritism. And so the only thing you can do is try and explain that to them. And if they can't hear it and they can't receive it, then you just let them sit with it and draw their own conclusions, because what you want to encourage them not to do is allow themselves to live with anger and resentment over a feeling like you favor one child over the other. You know, and that's a really difficult thing to do sometimes, you know. To get your children to understand that you don't have any favorite, because you recognize the difference in each one of their personalities. And so you're going to treat them according to their personality, I hope. You can't treat all your children the same. You can have the same house rules, but you can't treat them all the same. You know, so look at mistakes as an opportunity to learn and grow, and teach them, you know, that mistakes are an opportunity. It doesn't define you. You made a mistake, you got in a fight, you got in trouble, whatever. You got fired from your job. I got fired a couple of times in my life. Both times we're talking about my spiritual practices and my beliefs. So we're not ever going to do any of these things perfectly. But once you start implementing family meetings in your life, you're going to see change. Your family is going to start feeling valued and respected in that space. And they know that who they are is valued there. You see what I'm saying? And so when you come from a addiction and recovery background, you normally come from a broken home. And that was my situation. And so I already entered into parenthood without skills, you know. And on top of it, you know, the amount of years that you spent using are the amount of years that you stopped growing. You see, and most people use drugs and alcohol because they're masking their feelings and their emotions. Okay, so when you stop using drugs and alcohol long enough, and you have a way to start managing your feelings and your emotions, then you can, you know, start the process of emotional healing. And so parenting is definitely under the emotional freedom category at the Personal Freedom Center. And in coaching with me, we focus a lot on the emotions because who we who we are basically is who we carry around inside, not who and what the world perceives us to be. You know, they might judge you by your looks and by how you talk or how you carry yourself, but you could be a mess inside. Or you might look like a mess on the outside and have it all together on the inside, you know. So we can't judge people by how they appear, you know. We all have emotional work to do. And those that learn how to do it early on in life are far better. Now, if you're in a situation in a family meeting, you don't want to allow your children to curse or swear, and you don't want to allow them to disrespect you either or each other just because they have a right to express themselves. You demand and you keep your facilitator cap on and set some consequences if that does happen, you know. So I guess one of the important things I need to reiterate here is that you want to set ground rules from your first meeting. Either you come up with them and you say, you know, look, I have, you know, these two basic ground rules, which are mutual respect and emotional honesty. And if you guys have any more that you want to, you know, add, you know, to our group, because this is all of our group, then let's talk about that. You know, whenever you think of something, let's talk about implementing it, you know, as a group rule. You know, group rules are really important. Okay, so emotional honesty is a skill and it can be learned. And as a matter of fact, nobody comes out the womb just knowing how to emote. You know, babies cry because they want to eat, because they're wet, you know, and etc. because they want love, attention, or they're tired. And you have to learn what to do in each moment. And it's the same way that you constantly assess your family and you constantly assess your children and the responses that people in the group bring, not just your children. And you want to respect their feelings. There are so many words for feelings, and you might want to have a feelings word or handy. And I'll try and post one for you, a link to one underneath this video, okay? And remember that feelings aren't good or bad, or right or wrong, or proper or improper. They just are what they are. And sometimes we know that our feelings are just a response to something that happened to us in the past. And this new situation has touched or triggered that emotional event from the past. You see, I learned when I was writing my first book, and I thought I had a copy here, Fart in the Wind, Get Rid of Emotional Flatulence. I learned that while I was researching for that book, that emotions are stored in ourselves, you see, and in this book, okay? So it's called Fart in the Wind, Get Rid of Emotional Flatulence. This is the first book that I wrote. And I just recently officially changed my name to Freedom. So I told myself that I was going to change my name to Freedom when I found personal freedom for myself. I want to see if I can find that page where that is on. Just give me a second. Hopefully it's in the glossary. Well, this book is pretty much all about feelings and emotions. So I have a list of pleasant feeling words, unpleasant feeling words, negative rules that some families tend to hold. And that's on page 22. So let me look at that really quick. That's not where I was going, and I promised to stay on task. So give me a second. Negative rules and negative messages commonly heard in troubled families are don't talk, don't trust, and don't feel. Don't express your emotions. Don't get angry. Don't get upset. Don't cry. Do as I say, not as I do. Be good. Be nice. Be perfect. Avoid conflict or avoid dealing with conflict. Do well in the school. Don't ask any questions. Don't betray the family. Don't talk about the families with outsiders. Keep the family's secrets. Don't think, don't talk, just follow directions. Don't ask questions. Be seen and not heard. Don't backtalk. Keep your opinions to yourself. Okay, don't contradict me. Always look good. I'm always right and you're always wrong. Always be in control. It's important to let family members know that there is an appropriate way, to discuss family problems. So that is positive and negative emotions. Also in this book on page 120, and I get a little bit more into that. I think it might be on page 40. Let me just make sure real quick. Oh yeah, and there's like a really great glossary in the back. So I put indexes in all of my books. So I'm gonna look there under emotions. Okay, wow, this is a lot on emotions, so I guess that's not a good word to look up. But anyways, it says that scientists discovered that our emotions are stored in our cells. You see, and that's why it's so important to understand how your emotions work, because if emotions are stored in your cells and you are housing or holding on to a lot of negative energy, then you're going to start manifesting negative symptoms in your body through illness, stress, depression, and you don't want this for your family. Even though life is hard, it can be easier when you all join forces together and when you learn how to deal with life in appropriate ways. Okay, so that is in that book, Fart in the Wind, Get Rid of Emotional Flatulence, and you can find that on Amazon or on my website, viviangale.com. So I'm going to wrap this up, and I just also wanted to say that when you get to a place where when you start sharing emotionally, you feel so vulnerable, especially if it's not something that you've used to doing. And you don't know that the person who you're sharing with is capable of receiving it in the right way. But sometimes, there might be a situation where someone is constantly doing something that is causing you emotional pain. And it's causing you to lose respect, and it's causing you to your self-esteem to go lower or become low. And you really feel like you need to express that person. To that person, it might be your mom, it might be a uncle, a dad, a older sibling, and so it's something that you have to do. And you might not know how they're going to receive it, so that's one of those times where you say a quick prayer, just help me, whoever it is that you pray to. If you just say, just help me, you're going to get the help that you need. You don't have to know how to pray, but the more you learn about it, asking for help is always there. And I've learned that through my own experiences. Is asking for help in situations, just saying, please help me, I get the help that I need. So with teens, if parents can master the art of emotional honesty and mutual respect, listening without fixing or trying to fix, listening without criticizing, and judging or defending the family meeting can be an invaluable tool for communication and for conflict resolution. You can also use it for joint planning and overall good feelings in the family. So here are some tips, and I hope that you got a pen and a paper, or you got your typewriter or word program open. Number one, tips for a successful family meeting is number one, set up a regular day and time for your family meetings. Let the family know when the time is coming near and ask them to please be prepared. Okay, and number two, appreciation. Keep a positive tone and ask others to keep a positive tone. But you set the tone as the group facilitator, as the parent, you set the emotional tone. And husbands and wives set the emotional tone primarily, mothers do in the home. And you want to have an agenda. You want to have, as a facilitator, you want to have a way in your own mind or on paper that you're going to run this meeting. First, you're going to open up the meeting. You're going to thank them all for coming and encouraging them, to open up and share what it is that they have written down, and tell them what order you're going to go in, how much time that you have for the meeting, and ask them to respect the time. Okay, you can choose a group leader or facilitator every week. It doesn't always have to be you. And if you want, you can even have a note taker. Someone is the recorder and keeps a record, because you want to see in the next week or the weeks to come if you guys have made any progress. You want to see the progress that you have made. And the following meetings in the weeks, you can look at the progress that you've made through your notes. You can say, we talked about this and this was the result, or these are the steps that we've taken so far. It may not be all the way resolved, but you can see the notes that you have. So you got to set up a regular time, number one. Number two, appreciations. Keep a positive tone. Number three, have an agenda. Number four, choose a facilitator. Share the leadership. It doesn't always have to be you. Number five, someone is the recorder, and you want to have a notebook that's kept just for those meetings. Number six, someone records issues and the agreements. It could be the recorder, or it could be someone else that hands the paper to the recorder or the secretary. So, yeah, black people, you can do it, people of color, whoever you are. I'm not, condescending to my own people, because I know a lot of us do have positive things that we have implemented. But if you've been taught that black people don't do this, there's no reason why you can't do it, because it's not about a color. It's about a practice. It's something that you really want to be healthy, and you want to have a good family. You want a wholesome family. You don't want a dysfunctional family. And that starts right now, right here and now. So the next one is practice listening and problem solving skills. Okay, so the group facilitator is going to be responsible for practicing listening and offering problem solving solutions. Everyone can contribute, but you want to mostly make sure that there's respect, that the message of love gets through, and that there's no fighting. And there should be a consequence established in your group rules for what's going to happen if someone does fight or physically or verbally abuse another person in the group. Okay, so number 8 is everyone abides by solution. Okay, so you want to stay solution focused. You don't want to get stuck in the problem. And you want to evaluate at the next meeting how that went. Okay. And number 9, remember, you are not only solving problems, that you are teaching skills and building relationships. This brings so much order into your family and so much respect. And I can't tell you how much that it changed my relationships. And at the time, I remember sitting my children down and telling them that I was going to go back to school to be a counselor. I explained to them that I wasn't making enough money to take care of them, and that I couldn't really depend on any income but my own. And so that if I went to school for just a few more years, a couple years, that I would be able to increase the amount of money that I was making. And I sat them down and I asked them for what I needed. I needed for me time when I came home, and I made sure that I gave them each quality time during the week. And, sometimes a good idea is, if you have a stressful environment or you're a single parent, take 15 minutes before you come home and just go for a ride, whatever, a walk, or just sit in your car, listen to music, and let go of the stress from the day. Let go of the stress from your job, okay? So this has been our first positive parenting meeting. And like I said, when I first got out of recovery and I went home, I was 29, I think. And I felt like I didn't know my kids because I hadn't really even knew myself. I was just beginning. I went to a 30-day program and I've been clean ever since. I think I'm going on 25 years now. So, yay me. And good for them, right? So, I have another video that I'm going to do about some really important issues that evolve around parenting and recovery. Getting to know yourself and letting your children see who you really are and getting to know who they are. So stay with me. I don't know how often I'll make these videos, maybe once a month, and look forward to the next one, or I don't know, it might just be random. There's a lot of things that I want to talk about. Okay, so not just for family meetings, but let's see. I don't know. I guess some of the other things that I'll talk about is some common concerns that parents might have, when they have babies, like how to deal with a baby crying, how to get time, for yourself when your baby's like from 12 months old and under, their sleeping habits and feeding and weaning your baby, from nursing or from talking about activities and separation anxiety when you go to work. Okay, I dealt with that. And coming home was hard for me because it's like you have to change hats, So I'm dealing with people, predominantly people who have addiction problems, and that's very emotionally draining during the course of a day. And to have to change hats and come home to 5 kids, well, so then you got common concerns for parents of kids that are, I guess, from 12 months to 24. Teaching them, how to avoid tantrums and using the toilet and all that fun stuff, taking naps and sharing. So you want to make sure that they're starting to talk now, that they're using words that are appropriate and that you're modeling the behavior that you want to see from them. We'll be talking about television and I guess transitioning, from maybe around 4 years old, and you're going to start bringing them maybe to daycare or, or school, preschool, and, how they're going to pick up on things that they hear and learn there from other people, lying, foods that they like and dislike, and maybe they're a picky eater, and how to handle chores, and as they get older, friends, how to pick good friends and how to be a good friend. And so we'll be talking about all those things, enabling, how to support your teenagers, your family, your husband, your wife, everyone in your family. And so keep on watching, and thank you for tuning in. Peace and blessings. If you want to have more coaching to help support you and your family to grow emotionally and spiritually, financially, or any way, please hit me up. I'll put my number here in the video and underneath the bottom. I'm always available for coaching, and right now I'm accepting new clients. So I look forward to hearing from you. Make it a great day. Peace and blessings.